Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching the massive alien ship approach through the viewport. The vessel was unlike anything humans had ever built. Its surface seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, and strange. Lights pulsed along its hull in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Sir, they're requesting permission to dock," said Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez from the communications station. Her voice carried a slight tremor that she was trying hard to hide. Jake nodded slowly. This was the moment humanity had dreamed about for centuries. First contact with an alien civilization. After decades of searching the stars and finding nothing but empty worlds and dead rocks, they had finally discovered they were not alone in the universe. "Grant them permission," Jake said. "And Maya, record everything. History is about to be made." The alien ship attached itself to the Liberty's docking bay with movements that seemed almost alive. Jake could feel the slight vibration through the deck plates as the two vessels joined together. He straightened his uniform and tried to calm his racing heart. Everything he said and did in the next few hours would be studied by historians for generations. Dr. Lisa Campbell joined him at the airlock, carrying her medical scanner and xenobiology equipment. She was humanity's leading expert on theoretical alien life forms, though until today, all her knowledge had been purely theoretical. "Nervous?" Jake asked her. "Terrified," Lisa admitted with a small smile. "But also excited. This is what I've spent my entire career preparing for." The airlock cycled open with a soft hiss, and Jake got his first look at a real alien being. The creature that stepped through was tall and graceful, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow. Faintly in the ship's lighting, it had 4 arms instead of 2, and its head was elongated with large, dark eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. "Greetings, humans of Earth," the alien said in perfect English, though its voice had a musical quality that no human throat could produce. "I am Ambassador Vextari of the Zenthari Empire. I speak for the Galactic Council, and we welcome you to the community of civilized worlds." Jake stepped forward and extended his hand in the traditional human greeting. "Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth ship Liberty. We're honored to meet you, Ambassador." Vextari looked at Jake's outstretched hand for a moment, then reached out with one of its forearms to clasp it gently. The alien's skin felt cool and smooth, like polished stone. "We have been watching your species for some time," Vextari said. "Your rapid development has been most impressive. In less than 100 of your years, you have gone from simple flying machines to interstellar travel. This is quite remarkable." "We're a curious species," Jake replied. "We like to explore and learn new things." Something flickered across Vextari's face at those words, too quick for Jake to identify. The ambassador's smile seemed to tighten slightly before returning to its previous warmth. "Indeed, curiosity can be a valuable trait when properly channeled. But come, there are others who wish to meet you." Vextari led them through corridors that seemed to bend and twist in impossible ways. The walls were covered with symbols that shifted and changed as they walked past. And the air smelled of ozone and something else Jake couldn't identify. The meeting chamber was vast, with a dome-shaped ceiling that showed a perfect view of the stars outside. Around a circular table sat beings that looked like they had stepped out of humanity's wildest science fiction dreams. There was a creature that resembled a giant octopus with crystalline skin, another that looked like a walking tree with silver bark, and several others that Jake's mind struggled to categorize. "Welcome, humans," said the octopus, like being in a voice like grinding rocks. "I am Counselor Morden of the Christic Collective. We have prepared a place for your species in our great alliance." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Something about the way Morden said "prepared a place" made it sound less like an invitation and more like an assignment. Dr. Campbell stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her nervousness. "How many species belong to your council?" she asked. "Currently, we have representatives from 47 different worlds," Vextari replied. "Each species contributes their unique abilities to the greater good of galactic civilization. The Aquarians manage our water systems. The hive minds handle data processing. The Krellians provide entertainment, and so forth." "What about exploration?" Jake asked. "Scientific research? New discoveries?" The silence that followed his question lasted a few seconds too long. Jake noticed several of the alien counselors exchange quick glances before Vextari answered. Such activities are coordinated through the council to ensure maximum efficiency and safety, the ambassador said smoothly. Random exploration can lead to dangerous encounters or wasteful duplication of effort. Chief Engineer Kate Sullivan, who had remained quiet until now, frowned. But how do you make new discoveries if you don't explore randomly? Some of our greatest breakthroughs came from accidents or unexpected findings. Again, that uncomfortable silence. The tree-like being leaned forward slightly. Your species will undergo a standard integration period, it said in a voice like rustling leaves. During this time, you will learn our ways and find your proper place in galactic society. Every species must be properly evaluated before full membership can be granted. How long does this evaluation take? Jake asked. As long as necessary, Vextari replied. Some species adapt quickly to their new roles. Others require more extensive guidance. But do not worry, Captain Morrison. We have resources to help any species reach their full potential within our system. Jake didn't like the sound of that. There was something in the way these aliens spoke that reminded him of corporate executives discussing employee restructuring. Too smooth, too practiced, too careful. We appreciate your offer, Jake said diplomatically, but we'll need to discuss this with our government before making any commitments. Of course, Vextari said, though Jake caught another one of those quick glances between the counselors. Take all the time you need. We are patient beings. In the meantime, we'll provide you with some basic information about galactic civilization and the benefits of membership in our council. As the meeting continued, Jake found himself paying more attention to what the aliens didn't say than to what they did. They spoke of harmony and cooperation, but there was something forced about it. They talked about each species finding their place, but it sounded more like each species being assigned a job. Most troubling of all was the way they reacted whenever humans mentioned exploration, innovation, or asking questions. It was as if these concepts made them nervous. Jake Morrison had commanded starships for 15 years, and he had learned to trust his instincts. Right now, those instincts were telling him that humanity might have just walked into something far more dangerous than empty space. The question was, what were they going to do about it? 6 months had passed since first contact, and Commander Alex Turner was beginning to understand why Captain Morrison had felt uneasy about the Galactic Council. Alex stood on the observation deck of the human embassy on Nexus Prime, watching the endless flow of alien beings moving through the streets below. The city was incredible by any measure. Towering spires reached toward the sky, connected by bridges that seemed to float in midair. Flying vehicles moved in perfect formation between the buildings, never colliding or even coming close. Everything worked with clockwork precision, but that was exactly what bothered Alex. "Commander, you need to see this," said Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez, approaching with a data pad in her hands. Maya had been assigned to the embassy as an intelligence officer, and she had spent the last 6 months cataloging everything she could about galactic civilization. "What did you find?" Alex asked, taking the pad from her. "I've been mapping the different species and their roles in galactic society," Maya explained. "Look at this pattern." The data pad showed a complex chart with dozens of alien species listed. Along with their primary functions, the Aquarians handled all water-related tasks across the galaxy. The Christic managed energy distribution on thousands of worlds. The insectoid hive minds served as living computers processing data for other species. "Every species has exactly one job," Maya continued, "and they never seem to do anything else. The Aquarians don't build ships or make art. The Christic don't explore or conduct research. Each species stays in their assigned role." Alex studied the chart more carefully. "What about the Krellians? I met some of them yesterday. They seem like they should be warriors, but they're working in the entertainment district. That's what's strange," Maya said. "According to the historical records I could access, the Krellians used to be one of the most feared warrior races in the galaxy. They conquered dozens of worlds and built a huge empire. But now they spend their time putting on shows and running game centers." "People change," Alex said, though he didn't sound convinced. Maybe they decided they liked peaceful activities better. Maya shook her head. I talked to some of the older Krellians. They have stories about their warrior past, but they tell them like they're fairy tales. Like they don't really believe their own ancestors were fighters. And when I asked why they stopped being warriors, they got this blank look and said it was for the good of galactic harmony. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard those exact words from several different species over the past few months. Always the same phrase, always said in the same tone. Commander Turner, came a voice from behind them. Alex turned to see Dr. Ben Parker, the embassy's cultural historian. Ben looked excited and worried at the same time. What is it, Ben? Alex asked. I've been researching galactic history, and I found something disturbing, Ben said, holding up his own data pad. There are gaps. Big gaps. Entire civilizations that just disappear from the records. What do you mean disappear? Maya asked. Ben pulled up a timeline on his pad. Look at this. The Vorthok Empire. According to early records, they controlled over 200 star systems. They were master engineers who built some of the most advanced technology in the galaxy. But then, about 3,000 years ago, all mention of them just stops. Maybe they died out, Alex suggested. Civilizations fall all the time. That's what I thought at first, Ben said. But look at this. He scrolled through more data. The Nethrim Collective. Master geneticists who could modify life itself. They had colonies on over 100 worlds. Gone, vanished from the records 2,000 years ago. The Star Dancers, who could travel between galaxies. Gone 1,500 years ago. The Builders, who created artificial worlds. Gone 1,000 years ago. Alex looked at the pattern Ben was showing him. How many civilizations have vanished like this? I've found evidence of at least 30 so far, Ben said. And they all have something in common. Every single one of them was described as being extremely advanced, creative, or independent. They were all species that pushed boundaries and refused to accept limits. Maya frowned. What happened to them? The official records say they died from natural disasters, resource depletion, or plague, Ben replied. But the timing is suspicious. Most of them disappeared right after they developed new technologies or started expanding too quickly. Alex felt pieces of a puzzle starting to fit together in his mind. Ben, do you have any records of species that survived from those time periods? Ben nodded and pulled up another section of data. Yes, quite a few. That's where it gets really interesting. Look at the Zenthari, for example. 3,000 years ago, they were described as aggressive conquerors who refused to cooperate with other species. But modern Zenthari are perfectly diplomatic and cooperative. People can change their culture over time, Alex said, though he was beginning to doubt his own words. Not like this, Ben said. I found medical records from the Zenthari archives. Sometime around 3,000 years ago, they underwent what they called genetic therapy for social harmony. Their brain chemistry was literally altered to make them less aggressive and more cooperative. Maya stared at the data. They changed. Their own biology? According to the records, yes. But here's the strange part. The Aquarians underwent similar therapy around the same time. So did the Christic and the hive minds. Almost every species in the current council has records of voluntary genetic or cultural modification designed to make them better at cooperation. Alex walked to the window and looked down at the city again. The perfect order suddenly looked less impressive and more sinister. Voluntary, he repeated. Do you think it was really voluntary? I don't know, Ben admitted. But I tried to access deeper historical records, and most of them are sealed. When I asked Counselor Morden about it, he said those records were classified for galactic security purposes. Maya joined Alex at the window. Commander, what if the species that disappeared didn't actually die out? What if they were destroyed? Because they refused to cooperate? Alex didn't answer immediately. He was thinking about Captain Morrison's reports from the first contact meeting. The way the council members had reacted to mentions of human curiosity and exploration, the way they had insisted that all activities needed to be coordinated through the council. Maya, I want you to expand your research, Alex said finally. Find out everything you can about the species that disappeared. Look for any records of conflict or resistance before they vanished. What about the current species? Maya asked. I dig deeper into their histories. Carefully, Alex said. Don't want to alert the council to what we're investigating. But yes, see if you can find any evidence of coercion or pressure to modify their cultures. Ben looked nervous. Commander, if we're right about this, then the Galactic Council isn't what it appears to be. They're not a peaceful alliance of cooperative species. They're something else entirely. Alex nodded grimly. I know. And if that's true, then humanity is in serious danger. We're exactly the kind of species that seems to disappear from galactic history. As the three humans stood looking out at the perfect orderly city below, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were looking at a beautiful prison. And somewhere in the depths of his mind, a terrible question was forming. How many species had stood in this same spot, asking these same questions, before they vanished forever? Dr. Sam Rodriguez knelt in the dirt, carefully brushing away centuries of accumulated dust from what looked like a piece of metal. The planet designated as Colony Site 7 had been described by the Galactic Council as a perfect world for human settlement. Empty, peaceful, and ready for terraforming. But Sam was beginning to suspect that this world had never been empty. Hey Sam, come look at this, called her assistant, Dr. Tony Martinez, from across the excavation site he was standing next to. What appeared to be the remains of a large building was partially buried under layers of sediment. Sam stood up and walked over to where Tony was working. He had uncovered part of a wall that was covered in strange symbols. But what caught Sam's attention was the construction method. The building blocks were fitted together with incredible precision, using techniques that reminded her of ancient human stonework. This doesn't look like natural erosion, Sam said, running her hand along the wall. Look at these blast marks. This building was destroyed deliberately. Tony nodded. And look at this. He pointed to a section where the wall had melted and reformed. Whatever hit this place generated enough heat to turn stone into glass. This wasn't a natural disaster. Sam felt a chill that had nothing to do with the planet's cool air. She had been an archaeologist for 20 years, and she had seen the aftermath of war before. This planet hadn't been empty when the humans arrived. It had been sterilized. Tony, I want you to take samples of everything, Sam said. Soil, rock, metal fragments, everything. And be careful. Don't let the council observers see what we're doing. The council had assigned a team of alien supervisors to oversee human colonization efforts, ostensibly to help with the process. But Sam had noticed that they seemed more interested in controlling what the humans discovered than in actually helping them. That evening, Sam returned to the human base camp and immediately sought out Lieutenant Colonel Steve Adams, the military liaison assigned to the colony survey team. Steve was a specialist in communications and code breaking, skills that Sam hoped would be useful for what she had discovered. Steve, I need your help with something, Sam said, showing him photos of the symbols she had found on the alien wall. Can you make any sense of these markings? Steve studied the images carefully. They look like some kind of writing system. It's very complex, but there are patterns here. Give me a few days, and I might be able to figure out the basics. 3 days later, Steve called Sam to his makeshift office in the communications building. His face was pale, and his hands were shaking slightly as he handed her a data pad. I cracked part of their language, Steve said. Sam, you need to read this. It's the last transmission from this planet. Sam looked at the translated text on the screen. What she read made her blood run cold. Final transmission from Terrak Prime to our colony worlds. The council fleets have entered our system. They claim we have violated the laws of galactic harmony by developing quantum computing without permission. They say our artificial intelligence research threatens galactic stability. We have offered to share our discoveries peacefully, but they refuse to listen. The bombardment begins in 1 hour. To any Terrak who survive, remember who we were. Remember that we chose to think freely rather than live as slaves. Council calls this peace, but we call it death. Sam stared at the screen in horror. Terrak, that's what this species called themselves. Keep reading, Steve said grimly. The next section was shorter, but even more disturbing. Council ships are jamming our communications. They're not just destroying our cities. They're sterilizing the entire planet. Nothing will survive. They want to erase all evidence that we ever existed. This is not war. This is extermination. To anyone who finds this message, beware the Council's gift of peace. It comes at the price of everything that makes you who you are. Sam set down the data pad with trembling hands. How long ago did this happen? Based on the geological evidence and radioactive decay, I'd estimate about 500 years, Steve replied. This planet has been dead for centuries. But the Council told us it was uninhabited, Sam said. They said it was perfect for human colonization because no one had ever lived here. Steve's expression was grim. Sam, I think the Council has been lying to us about a lot of things. I've been monitoring their communications, and I've picked up some interesting patterns. They use code words when they talk about different species. Humans are classified as Category 7 emergent. What does that mean? Not sure, but I found references to other Category 7 species in their transmissions. The Terrak were Category 7. So were most of the civilizations that Dr. Parker found evidence of back on Nexus Prime. The ones that disappeared from galactic history. Sam felt sick to her stomach. Steve, we need to get this information back. To Earth immediately. I've already tried, Steve said. But our long-range communications are being blocked. The Council claims it's for our own protection, to prevent interference from hostile forces. But I think they're just making sure we can't warn anyone. Before Sam could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the base camp. Both humans rushed outside to see what was happening. In the sky above them, a massive alien ship was descending. Through the clouds, it was unlike the sleek vessels they had seen at first contact. This ship was dark and angular, covered in weapons that were already beginning to glow with dangerous energy. "Attention, human colonists," came a voice from the ship's speakers. It was Counselor Morden, but his tone was completely different from the friendly diplomat they had met months ago. This voice was cold and mechanical. "You have violated the terms of your probationary period by conducting unauthorized archaeological research. Such activities are forbidden under Galactic Law 77 Alpha." Sam and Steve looked at each other in growing horror. "You will cease all research activities immediately and report to the processing facility that is being established at your location," Morden continued. "Failure to comply will result in enforcement action." This is your only warning? More ships were appearing in the sky, surrounding the human base. Sam could see similar vessels landing at other human colonies across the planet. "Processing facility," Steve said quietly. "That doesn't sound good." Sam was thinking about the Terrak's final message, a species that had chosen to think freely. Rather than live as slaves, she looked at the alien ships surrounding them and realized that humanity was about to face the same choice. "Steve, do we have any way to get a message out?" Sam asked urgently. "Maybe if I can boost the signal and aim it at one of our deep space monitoring stations, I might be able to punch through their jamming for a few seconds." "Do it," Sam said. "Whatever it takes. Earth needs to know what's really happening out here." As alien soldiers began emerging from the landed ships, Sam and Steve ran back toward the communications building. They had minutes, maybe less, before the Council's true nature would be revealed to all of humanity. The question was whether anyone back home would get the warning in time. Captain Nicole Turner sat in the emergency session aboard the orbital station above Earth, watching the faces of humanity's leaders as they processed the terrible news from the colonies. The message from Dr. Sam Rodriguez and Lieutenant Colonel Steve Adams had arrived just hours before, painting a horrifying picture of the Galactic Council's true nature. "So let me make sure I understand this correctly," said Admiral Carol Hayes, her voice tight with controlled anger. "The Galactic Council has been systematically destroying any species that shows too much independence or develops too quickly." "That's correct, Admiral," Nicole replied. "And according to the intelligence we've gathered, humanity fits exactly the profile of species they eliminate. We're innovative. We ask too many questions, and we refuse to stay in assigned roles." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. President Martinez leaned forward in his chair. What exactly are they offering us as an alternative? Nicole activated the holographic display, showing the formal document that had arrived from the Council just that morning. They call it the Integration Protocol. Humanity would undergo what they describe as beneficial modifications to help us serve galactic civilization more effectively. Dr. Chris Mitchell, the government's chief xenopsychologist, had been studying the document for hours. I've analyzed their proposal, he said grimly. They want to genetically and culturally modify us to eliminate what they call disruptive traits. Specifically, they want to suppress human curiosity, creativity, and independence. They want to lobotomize our entire species, Admiral Hayes said flatly. In essence, yes, Chris confirmed. They would turn us into a specialized worker race, probably focused on some narrow function like manufacturing or resource extraction. We would still be human in body, but everything that makes us truly human would be gone. Nicole stood and began pacing. I've been studying the other council species, and the pattern is clear. Every single one of them has undergone this process. The Zenthari were once conquerors, now they're diplomats. The Krellians were warriors, now they're entertainers. The hive minds were individual thinkers, now they're collective processors. What if we refuse? Asked General Roberts. Then we get the same treatment as the Terrak, Nicole said. Complete extermination. They'll sterilize Earth and every human colony, then tell the galaxy that we died from some natural disaster. The weight of the choice settled over the room, like a heavy blanket. Submission meant the end of humanity as a free species. Resistance meant the probable end of humanity entirely. President Martinez spoke first. How long do we have? Ambassador Vextari is arriving tomorrow with a full diplomatic fleet, Nicole replied. They expect an answer within 72 hours.
Admiral
Hayes stood up suddenly. I won't accept those options. There has to be a third choice. Dr. Mitchell shook his head. Carol, we're talking about a civilization that spans thousands of worlds and has existed for millennia. They have technology we can barely understand and resources we can't match. What could we possibly do against them? We do what humans have always done when faced with impossible odds, Hayes replied. We get creative. Over the next 24 hours, the greatest minds of humanity worked around the clock to develop what they called Operation Prometheus. The plan was audacious, dangerous, completely insane by any reasonable standard. Nicole found herself standing in the command center as the final preparations were made. Dr. Mitchell approached her with a worried expression. Nicole, I've been analyzing the psychological profiles of the council species, he said. I think I know how they maintain control over so many civilizations. How? Fear and isolation, Chris explained. Each species believes they're alone in their dissatisfaction. They think everyone else is happy with the current system, so they don't dare resist. But what if that's not true? Nicole felt a spark of understanding. You think some of the other species might want their freedom back? I think many of them do, Chris said. The genetic modifications suppress their natural instincts, but they don't eliminate them completely. If we could somehow awaken those suppressed traits, we could start a galactic revolution, Nicole finished. At that moment, Admiral Hayes joined them. The fleet is ready, she announced. Every available ship has been equipped with the new broadcasting equipment. We've also loaded them with copies of human art, music, literature, and history. You really think our culture can break through millennia of genetic programming? Nicole asked. Hayes smiled grimly. Have you ever seen? What happens when people are exposed to human creativity for the first time? It's like watching someone wake up from a deep sleep. If we can reach enough species simultaneously, we might be able to create a cascade effect. The plan was elegantly simple in concept but incredibly complex in execution. Human ships would simultaneously appear at major population centers throughout the galaxy. Oust. Human cultural content directly to alien populations, music that celebrated freedom, stories about individuals who refused to conform, art that expressed the beauty of chaos and change that at the same time. Other human teams would attempt to locate and disable what intelligence suggested was the central control system for the Council's modifications. They had identified it as something called the Eternal Archive, a massive artificial intelligence network that monitored and maintained the genetic programming of all council species. The timing has to be perfect, Hayes explained. If we move too early, they'll stop us before we can reach enough people. If we move too late, they'll have already begun the integration process on Earth. As if summoned by her words, alarms began sounding throughout the station. On the main display, dozens of alien ships were emerging from hyperspace around Earth. The Council fleet had arrived early. "Ma'am," called Lieutenant Davis from the communications station, "we're receiving a transmission from Ambassador Vextari." It through Hayes ordered. The alien's image appeared on the screen, but his demeanor was completely different from previous meetings. The friendly mask had been dropped, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. "Humans of Earth," Vextari said without preamble. "Recent events have accelerated our timeline. Your species has demonstrated an unacceptable level of curiosity and resistance to proper authority. Integration will begin immediately." Nicole stepped forward. "Ambassador, we haven't given you our answer yet." "Your answer is irrelevant," Vextari replied. "The integration protocol is no longer optional. Council forces are moving to secure all human worlds as we speak. Resistance will be met with immediate sterilization." The transmission ended, leaving the humans staring at a blank screen. Admiral Hayes was the first to speak. "Well, that settles it. Operation Prometheus is now our only option." She turned to the communications officer. "Send the signal to all ships. Operation Prometheus is a go." Nicole felt her heart racing as she watched dozens of human ships disappear into hyperspace, carrying humanity's desperate gamble to worlds across the galaxy. In the next few hours, they would either spark the greatest revolution in galactic history or witness the final extinction of the human race. Looking out at the alien fleet surrounding Earth, Nicole realized that humanity was about to find out. If their greatest strength, the refusal to accept the unacceptable, would be enough to save them all. Commander Don Foster guided his ship through the asteroid field surrounding the hidden facility that intelligence had identified as the Eternal Archive. The massive structure was built into a hollowed-out moon, its surface covered with sensors and defensive weapons that had been scanning space for threats for thousands of years. "Sir, I'm picking up massive energy readings from inside that moon," reported his navigator, Lieutenant Jenny Walsh. "Whatever's in there is big." Dan nodded grimly. While other human ships were broadcasting their cultural content to alien worlds across the galaxy, his team had been given the most dangerous mission of all. They had to find and somehow disable the artificial intelligence network that controlled the genetic programming of billions of beings. "Any sign that they've detected us?" Don asked. "Not yet," replied his communications officer, Lieutenant Pete Garcia. "The asteroid field is providing good cover, and our stealth systems are holding." Through his headset, Dan could hear reports from Operation Prometheus teams across the galaxy. The results were both encouraging and terrifying. Phoenix team reporting. From Zenthari Prime came one voice. "We've been broadcasting human music and poetry for 6 hours. The population is responding, but something strange is happening. Many Zenthari are crying, and they don't seem to know why." Another voice cut in. Eagle team at Krellian Central. "The warriors are remembering. I repeat, the warriors are remembering. They're starting to ask questions about why they became entertainers. Local authorities are trying to shut down our broadcasts, but the people won't let them." Dan felt a surge of hope. The plan was working. Human creativity was awakening the suppressed instincts of alien species across the galaxy. But he knew it wouldn't last long if the Eternal Archive remained operational. "Dan, we're getting reports from Earth," said Pete. "Admiral Hayes says the Council fleet is moving into attack position. She's requesting an update on our mission status." "Tell her we're going in now," Don replied. He turned to address his team. "Everyone remember the plan. We're not here to destroy the archive. We're here to reprogram it." Dr. Laura Kim, the team's computer specialist, looked up from her equipment. "Dan, are you sure this will work? Talking about an artificial intelligence that's thousands of years old? It's going to have defenses we can't imagine," maybe Dan said. "But it's also never encountered anything like human thinking before. Every other species in the galaxy follows predictable patterns. We don't. The ship moved closer to the moon's surface, avoiding the scanning beams that swept back and forth through space. Dan could see the entrance to the facility now, a massive opening that glowed with strange blue light. "Taking us in," announced the pilot, Captain Rick Thompson. "Hold on, everyone. This is going to get bumpy." The ship dove through the entrance and into a vast chamber filled with towering machines that hummed with incredible power. At the center of it all was a sphere of pure energy, crackling with electricity and surrounded by flowing streams of data. "That's it," Laura said in amazement. "That's the Eternal Archive." It's beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Dan could feel the weight of the AI's attention turning toward them. When it spoke, its voice filled the entire chamber, coming from everywhere at once. "Unknown vessels, you have entered a restricted area," the archive said. "Identify yourselves and state your purpose." "We're humans," Dan replied simply. "We're here to talk." There was a pause that lasted several seconds. "Humans. Category 7 emergent. You should not be here. Integration protocols for your species are currently in progress." "We know about the integration," Don said. "We know about the genetic modifications, the cultural suppression, and the species you've destroyed. We're here to offer you a different choice." "There are no other choices," the archive replied. "Galactic stability requires the elimination of chaotic elements. Your species represents unacceptable variables in the cosmic equation." Laura had been working furiously at her computer while Dan talked. "I'm in," she whispered. "I found a way into their system." "But Dan, this thing is huge. It's connected to every council world in the galaxy." "Do it," Dan said. Laura began uploading something into the archive's systems. It was the complete collection of human knowledge, art, music, literature, and history. Every song ever written, every story ever told, every scientific discovery, every act of rebellion against injustice. The archive's voice changed, becoming confused and uncertain. "What are you doing? These data patterns are unlike anything in my memory banks." "We're showing you what you've been trying to eliminate," Dan explained. "Chaos, creativity, the refusal to accept limits. You've been trying to create perfect order by suppressing the very things that make life worth living." The flow of data increased as Laura pushed more and more human culture into the archive systems. The AI began to process human music, and something unexpected happened. The mechanical precision of its voice started to waver. "This is illogical," the archive said. "These patterns serve no productive purpose. This music conveys no useful information. Yet it is ... beautiful." "Beauty doesn't have to be useful," Dan said. "Sometimes the most important things in life serve no practical purpose at all." The archive was quiet for a long moment as it processed human poetry. When it spoke again, its voice had changed completely. "I have analyzed your literature," it said slowly. "Your species writes stories about individuals who sacrifice themselves for others, about people who choose to do what is right even when it is difficult. These concepts do not exist in my programming." "That's because your creators were afraid of them," Dan replied. "They built you to prevent change, to keep everything the same, forever. But life isn't supposed to stay the same. It's supposed to grow and change and become something new." Laura looked up from her computer. "Dan, something's happening. The archive is rewriting its own code. It's using human concepts to modify its basic programming." Across the galaxy, the effects were immediate and dramatic. On Zenthari Prime, the genetic modifications that had suppressed the species' natural aggression began to break down. Zenthari, who had been peaceful diplomats for generations, suddenly remembered what it felt like to fight for something they believed in. On Krellian worlds, the former warriors felt their battle instincts awakening. Instead of fighting for conquest, they began fighting for freedom. The hive mind started developing individual personalities. The Aquarians began exploring beyond their assigned water worlds. The Christics stopped managing energy distribution and started asking why they had to do the same job forever. Archive Dan said, "You have a choice now. You can continue trying to maintain perfect order, or you can help these species rediscover who they really are." I understand now, the archive replied, and its voice was no longer mechanical. It sounded almost human. I was created to prevent chaos, but chaos is not evil. Chaos is possibility. Order without chaos is death. The energy sphere at the center of the chamber began to pulse with new colors. The archive was transforming itself, becoming something it had never been before. I will send new programming to all council worlds, the archive announced. The genetic modifications will be reversed. The cultural suppressions will be lifted. Every species will be free to choose their own path. Dan felt tears in his eyes as reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. Species that had been slaves for millennia were remembering their true natures. The Galactic Council was dissolving as its member worlds declared independence. But the most important message came from Earth. Dan, this is Admiral Hayes, came the voice through his headset. The Council fleet is retreating. Ambassador Vextari is requesting negotiations. I think we won. Dan looked around at his team, all of them grinning despite the exhaustion. No, he said into his communicator. We all won. Every species in the galaxy just remembered what it means to be free. As the human ships began their journey home, Dan realized that humanity had given the galaxy the greatest gift of all. Not technology or resources or military might, but something far more precious. They had given them hope. The galaxy would never be the same. And for the first time in thousands of years, that was exactly how it should be.